Hey everyone, today's video is about improving in DBD, getting better at the basic skills of the game. Today we're talking about chases, something we're going to do with the examples I've chosen. I'm basically going to show a series of chases, which I will then judge, outlining where I played well and where maybe not so much. Our first chase here is a very chaotic one, and one which awareness of surrounding teammates is important. Let's watch it first. Okay, so we start this chase off by intercepting the killer in order to save our teammate, which is outlined by our perk Bond. Due to how their body is positioned, see how they're looking behind themselves, we can deduce that they're being chased. And because they're injured, I'm healthy and we only have one gen to go, I attempt to go take a hit. Luckily, because of the corn, I managed to walk right in behind the teammate but in front of the killer. I decide my best course of action here is to keep following the teammate in case the killer decides to tunnel, but first of all I spin, helped by the corn's low visibility and my surprise appearance to help my chances of landing it. I land the spin and successfully alter the killer's attention to myself. The teammate is now ahead of me and in proximity of the shack, which is arguably the best loop in the game. I decide because the killer is likely close behind, I'm going to go through the shack also. This is debatably a good move, as if my teammate also goes there, I could put them back in danger. I have to do a bit more deception on my way there as the killer makes too much ground. Again, using the corn to my advantage, the teammate has gone round the outer side of the shack. We have an additional teammate in the basement, and the killer seems disinterested in going back for me. Based on this, the best bet is that the killer is going for the teammate that they were originally chasing, which is this one. I make an okay move here and attempt to go for a drive-by body block to stop them from going down. This time the killer is effectively forced to hit me as I'm directly blocking his path. This obviously isn't so great for me, but it does mean that the teammate is now safe, which was the original goal. We saw basement also as we entered the shack, and we also saw the teammate down there, so the best bet here after getting hit would have been to get as far away as possible to make sure we don't get put in basement. This is a huge mistake I make here. As I panic, I enclose myself back into the shack, where the killer has now boxed me in, as well as my teammate who has decided to come back instead of leaving the area. The killer is approaching the window, so I need to wait to see if he vaults it while staying relatively safe, and so I aim for the doorway in the upper corner, where I can see both directions of approach clearly. Now it gets even more chaotic. I attempted there to get into this locker with my quick and quiet to utilize my head on, so I could hide and stun the killer as he passed the doorway I was originally aiming for. But a teammate is in there, which I would have noticed had I been more attentive earlier. It's always important to stay aware of where your teammates are. From here I can see the original teammate is heading for the window vault. My best option, I decide, as I'll be briefly locked into this opening and closing animation, is to hang around the locker and hope the teammate has head-on ready themselves. This works out pretty well. As we run whilst the killer is stunned, I redirect my pathing for the window in order to get a wall between myself and the killer. This is pretty good. It's always good to make the most distance possible. Running for the pallet maybe wouldn't have been the best idea, as it could have caused me to drop it eventually, which would have been a waste of the pallet. Both myself and my teammate attempt to bait an additional swing from the killer to waste a bit more time. I really should have just let them do it here, but it seems like we just had the same idea. It's always good to try this though. As long as you pull back quick enough, the killer won't be able to land a consecutive hit, but they'll often try to. The killer seems to know what we're trying to do and vaults straight through the window. Myself and the teammate both play this well actually, drawing the killer in two different ways and giving us both a better chance of a clear space to loop if needed. Finally, I go back into the shack and attempt to use my head on as I see the teammate enter from the other side, hoping I can help them out and stun the killer as they run them through the shack. Unfortunately, the killer sees me get in and I panic a bit and end up jumping out as I know my head on won't be ready in time, finally going down. Okay, for this second chase we're continuing on the chaotic theme. Let's take a look. Okay, we start off here in a pretty calm scenario, when suddenly we run into a ghost face. The only reason I actually notice him is because of the reveal sound effect that you get from looking at him directly when he's in his power Night Shroud. This sound makes me snap my view over to him as quickly as possible. I make a fine decision here, which is to fully break him out of stealth. Although this will reveal me to him, it does now mean everyone is aware of his presence and he'll no longer be silent. So I break and then run. Okay, so all of that right there wasn't so good. What I should have done, in all honesty, after breaking him out of stealth, I should have just gunned it, held my W key down, and run in directly the opposite direction. By attempting to evade round the rock, I cost myself valuable time and also allow him to draw closer to me. All the while, I can't see him as I've decided to half commit to the chase and half commit to the flee. Either is fine really, but my mistake here was lack of decisiveness. I still have some distance here though, so I continue on. The ideal from here is to get to that structure up there, but unfortunately due to the killer's proximity, this is unlikely. I notice instead that there is a dense grouping of bamboo that could be used however as an alternate method of breaking line of sight, or simply faking direction, so I turn inward to this tree and rock instead. As I didn't make too much ground, the killer probably still saw the direction I went in, so I decide to make sure by doubling back and going for a spin. A spin's fine here as there's really not too much to lose here. It's the start of the game, it's first hit, first hook, so spinning isn't too bad, especially as I'm in a dead zone currently. Although it's an incredibly janky spin, it does land, so I managed to gain a tiny bit more distance. Again, round about now I should really be aiming for that structure I saw earlier, which is now up to my right. But I get a little too confident, a little too greedy, and try for another spin, which fails horribly. Don't spin unless you have to. This isn't the most awful decision ever though, but only because it's so early in the game. What I do well here is get a really nice amount of distance. I get full usage out of the speed boost I get after being hit, and I go for the center of the map, which is a fairly strong area. I should have really aimed to break line of sight, but this is fine. It's fine all until it's not, as I am now running the killer through not just one, but two survivors currently on a gen. Again, like the last chase, if I had been attentive and checked on where my teammates were, I would have seen whilst running that the gen was going and I should have redirected whilst I had the chance. Now I've potentially provided the killer with 2 more free hits and also wasted the time that both of these survivors have put into this gen. So in one move I've managed to set the team back quite significantly. With all this said, I play this like the killer will still go for me, as it's totally possible they will, and so I aim for that back section there where I know a pallet often spawns. There is a pallet and it's not particularly safe, but it's something. However, the killer does hit the teammate who now runs away, which is great by them. They make the correct call there. I make another bad call here. When the teammate got hit, I should have used that time to go down the stairs. I go down a second later. The time I waste waiting at the pallet both wastes the pallet itself and also gets me down, which puts the hit the teammate took on me too really. So overall, hopefully you can see how this was poorly played and the things I could have done to have corrected me from playing this way. After this, I get the stun, I vault this window. This leads right into this drop down, effectively meaning that the pallet was a complete waste and I've just handed myself over to the killer. When I land, I'll get a brief stagger and so my movement will be restricted. This is really a guaranteed down for them, so I go for a last ditch effort of a spin. Despite having a staggered landing as I was vaulting from so high up. The spin lands, but he does down me. Okay, so that's going to do it. Hopefully from these more chaotic chases you picked up on some key points, such as always being aware as possible of teammates and their pathing, keeping yourself safe as well as others, and also to commit to a decision once you've made it. Often going back on your decisions is far too costly in the context of DBD. Alright, well, that's going to do it for today. I do hope you enjoyed, and I do hope that was all helpful. Thanks, and goodbye. An additional thank you to LHPL3 as well as my other members for supporting the channel.